Okay, thank you and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, July 20th, 2020. Call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Recognition of members present. All the city council is present, including the city administrator. Moving on to item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd like to welcome everybody to join the council in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind City Administrator Kainrath. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, we have no items to discuss under general. That brings us to item 5, committee correspondence to council. At this time, are there any committee correspondence raised by Councilor McPhail? Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let everybody know that starting this Saturday, July 25th at 8:30, the Dyer Library is holding their annual book sale. Right now, some of the changes are that we are allowing 12 people inside at a time. So for the first couple of days, possibly a week, we are asking for reservations, and they can call the front desk of the library to book a reservation time at 283-3861. After the initial rush is over, we should be able to allow drop-ins at any time during regular library hours. It will be closing 30 minutes before the library normally does. Couple of things that we will be doing is that masks must be worn, and you will be asked to sanitize your hands before entering. We do have sanitizer available. And at this time also, we are looking for volunteers to help work the cash register. Cash registers will be located outside, and you can again call the front desk if anyone has time or is interested in helping to work that portion with us. And again, any questions or concerns, the library can be called, and we're happy to be able to work out so that we can hold this year, as it is a very popular event and a lot of people do look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McPhail. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a letter from the Conservation Commission. I just very recently emailed it around to council to read along if they would like. Stated July 13th, 2020. Dear City Council members, on behalf of the Saco Conservation Commission, we are submitting notice that we voted during our July 8th meeting in favor of pledging $1,000 of our annual budgetary funds to support the fundraising efforts of the Saco Middle School students to purchase conservation land, 8 acres abutting 4 Grace Lane in Saco and adjacent to 2 other Saco Valley Land Trust conserved properties. This donation pledge is based on the caveat that the students' financial goals are reached by May 1st, 2021, so that the land can be purchased. The funds will be held by the commission until the fundraising goal is met. If the goal is not met by this date, the pledge will be rescinded. This conservation initiative by the Saco Middle Schoolers aligns with the Conservation Commission's mission to support the preservation and enhancement of natural resources in Saco. As an advisory board to the City Council, we respectfully submit this letter of intent. And it's signed respectfully from Carl Kerrigan, interim chair, and Tom Clack, vice chair, with a copy to Andrew First, the Saco Middle School student advisor on this project.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further committee correspondence to council? Okay.
Well,
Councilor Copeland.
Mr. Mayor, I have some, well, it's not really from the committees. Should I save this for the beach? all the emails?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, we have public comment. City Administrator Canrath, have you received any public comment?
I have none at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. At this moment in time, if there is anyone wishing to speak before the council in attendance, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform, and you'll be unmuted and called upon to speak directly to the council. So first up, we have what looks like Stefa. Again, when you're unmuted, please state your name and address for the record. Stefa, you're allowed to talk, so please go ahead and just again state your name and your address for the record and speak to council. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. I would just like, this is Stefan Armantis. I live at 90 Jenkins Road and have a business over on Storer Street. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank the council, the city officials, and especially the work of the Economic and Community Development in putting together the loan program for local businesses. It's been really helpful for us. We manage large events, conferences, trade shows, and those, as everybody knows, are limited now. So the loan has allowed us to help continue to pay our employees and make it to the other side of this. So I just wanted to publicly thank those in the administration who supported this, and on behalf of all of us that have received support from the city. So thank you. It made a difference.
Thank you very much, Steph. Up next, we have Kelly Archer. Again, please state your name, your address for the record. You are unmute. You are allowed to talk. So you can, I think you're unmuted, or you can unmute to speak directly to the council. Again, you have 3 minutes. Kelly Archer, if you can hear, please unmute and speak, state your name and address for the record. It seems bear with us, folks. Are experiencing a little technical issue. Kelly Archer, if you can hear us, please go ahead and unmute. You're allowed to speak to the council, but you have to unmute.
Mr. Mayor,
Kelly Archer, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. So just for the record, state your name, your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience. The world. I'm Kelly Archer, 185 Bradley Street, and I'm also the chair of the HPC. And I'm just asking for a gentle reminder of 4 regular members of the HPC need to be reappointed, and 1 associate member needs to be appointed to a regular member. And I thank you very much. And the exciting projects that we have going on at the HPC this summer, we will get you an update shortly, and a welcome to a couple of these events. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kelly. We will make sure that those appointments are on for the first week in August meeting. Okay, up next we have David Plavin. David, again, you're allowed to talk. You can go ahead and unmute. Just state your name, your address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm David Plavin. I live at 2 Surf Street. I just wanted to comment on the fact that there's an agenda item tonight for beach safety. As a shoreline resident, I would strongly support any safety measures to keep our beaches and coastal areas safe. It's obvious that there's been a disregard for masks and social distancing, and there are things that can be done to help. Signs at all entrances to beaches asking people to enter and exit one at a time would be a good starter. I also ask that the council request a comprehensive safety plan to cover the entire Saco coastal area. To get at some of the current COVID-19 problems, let's look at the root cause of issues in general. Very little has been done to remediate traffic and parking problems along all the shore communities. Our dead ends are inundated by unnecessary volume of vehicles that either do not see or disregard speed limits or hazard and illegal. The signage remains outdated or non-existent. We can do better. Let's make safety a priority by establishing rules for the pandemic and beyond. Modernize signage to keep people from driving all over Camp Ellis looking for Hewitts or other destinations. Ticket drivers who park on the street, and make it clear that the beach is for those who can follow guidelines, be it for COVID-19 or the quality of life in coastal Saco. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council? If so, please raise your hand, use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform, and you'll be called upon to speak to the council. Next up, we have Nancy Schuster. You are allowed to talk. Please go ahead and unmute. State your name and address for the record, please. And you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Neil Schuster, 430. Actually, you probably came across as Nancy Schuster because it's her Zoom account, but this is Neil Schuster, 433 Ferry Road. And again, thank you. First, I want to thank all the city council for all of your efforts on behalf of the city. I'm present here this evening, primarily interested in the item about beach safety and protocols. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, Mayor Doyle, Mr. Kenrath, and Councilor Copeland received an email from me expressing my concerns very much similar to what was Mr. Plavin just recently expressed. I think things are very much out of hand down at the beach in a number of ways. Initially, I hope Saco does not contribute to an increase of COVID cases in Maine, because if anybody went anywhere near the beach this weekend, I think you would have noticed that the lack of social distancing there. But we will get past COVID, and I think the city council, we really need to look into the long term in terms of parking issues, access issues, road safety issues. Yesterday morning, I was driving back along Seaside Avenue. Someone was getting out of their car, proceeded to step right into the line of traffic on Seaside Avenue and unload their car while there was a biker oncoming traffic. And that's just a regular occurrence, especially on the weekend. And this year, every year in the years I've lived down here now for 30 years, every year the activity is increased. And this year, it's no secret, from bumper to bumper, from Bayview Road to Seaside Avenue, packed into Kinney Shores, Camp Ellis. And it would be one thing if it was City of Saco residents, and that's the first priority. Beyond that, you take a survey of the out-of-state license plates, and we're well aware that businesses over in Old Orchard encourage people to come to the beach in Saco. So I look forward to your discussion of beach safety and protocols. And I would also offer, if you decide to put together any kind of a committee to look at the issues down there, I'd be more than happy to participate in that if you are looking for public participation in such a, if you move in that direction and if you were looking for public participation. So thank you.
Thank you, Neil. If there is anyone else who wishes to speak before the council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform and you'll be unmuted to speak to the council. Seeing no hands raised and nobody seeking recognition, moving on to item 7. There are no meeting minutes to approve at this moment. Moving on to item 8, consent items. There's item A, appointment to Coastal Waters Commission of Leonard Hurrell. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Copeland, second by Councilor Archer. Any discussion? Seeing no hands raised and nobody seeking recognition, roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, we have action items. We have item A, adoption of the Intercultural Competency and Awareness Resolution. Councilor Copeland.
I'll just say it gives me great pleasure to be a part of this. The background is that an excerpt from Mayor Doyle's statement during the July 13th council meeting, which is considering the recent events across our country involving bias, racism, and hatred, we must take measures to denounce such actions while educating ourselves to facilitate a better future for all of our community members. As a community and nation, individuals of different ethnicities, sexual orientation, and religious ideologies will forge our path forward. We must have the philosophy of inclusion when discussing the way ahead on any subject matter, especially the eradication of racism. Staff recommends approving the resolution. I think I should read the whole thing, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Copeland, go ahead.
Okay. The suggested motion, should I do that last?
Sure.
And here is the suggested resolution. Whereas equality, inclusion, and safety for all persons is a core value in the city of Saco, and whereas a safe community requires open communication, diverse perspectives, and foundation built on trust. And whereas we know that communities succeed and achieve their best potential when all persons are welcome. And whereas we celebrate our community's diversity and welcome all who live, work, or visit here, regardless of their national origin, color, religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity, race, age, disability, or financial or socioeconomic status. Now, therefore, I, William Doyle, Mayor of Saco, on behalf of the City Council, hereby resolve all residents, visitors, and guests are entitled to be treated with compassion, respect, and dignity. And any individual exhibiting discriminatory behavior, overt or subtle, will not be tolerated by the city of Saco, its employees, or officials in any form. And the city of Saco encourages employees, board and committee members, and elected officials to identify their implicit and explicit bias to ensure the ideals of fairness and equality are upheld. And we commit to building an environment and a community in which everyone is valued, respected, and welcome. We encourage the citizens of Saco to likewise affirm these values of inclusion. And the motion is, be it resolved that the city of Saco, be it resolved that the Saco City Council supports the affirming a safe, welcoming, and diverse community resolution below, which I just read. And I move to approve this resolution.
Second.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
My apologies. The motion's been made by Councilor Copeland, second by Councilor Johnston. Again, thank you very much, Council, for supporting this and helping move this forward. Now a roll call vote if there's no questions or discussions. Thank you. Councilor Archer.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Purdy.
Yes.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Copeland.
Absolutely.
Councilor Minthorn.
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. To go with that, we have the authorization, the creation of an Intercultural Competency and Awareness Ad Hoc Committee. Councilor Archer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this ad hoc committee is to bring together members of the community, counselors, and staff to address inequality and bias issues in our community. The Intercultural Competency and Awareness Committee shall be composed of up to 21 members to be appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Each commission member shall be a resident of the city or a city staff member, shall be persons qualified to perform the duties of such office, and shall serve without compensation. The committee appointed by the mayor may consist of 10 residents, 1 from each ward, and 3 at large for a 3-year terms. 5 current city committee members, 1 from each. Historical Preservation Commission, Age Friendly, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and School Board. 5 staff and 1 council liaison, and that is myself. Staff supports this to allow the mayor to appoint as necessary. Be it ordered that the City Council authorize the creation of an Intercultural Competency and Awareness Ad Hoc Committee and allow the mayor to confirm appointment to the committee as necessary. I move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Archer and second by Councilor Copeland. Any discussion? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. You'll have to forgive me. I'm kind of losing my voice. Again, I wholeheartedly support this, and my comments are really just in regards to procedural or policy, and just something I wanted to throw out there. So, I mean, obviously, the authority to create a committee lies with council, which is what we're here doing tonight. I did have a few people reach out to me and ask specifically what the role of this committee would be, and I would agree that the specifics are not really defined. And I believe it was previously stated that those specifics would come as the committee is formed. I believe that's what you said, Mr. Mayor. Which again, I don't have a problem with that either. It's usually, ad hoc committees are temporary and are an advisory in nature. So I just think it's important that as we move forward with this, and for the record, that if this committee rises to the level of having powers or duties, it should be codified in the ordinance. So I just think it's important that if we're going to get to that level, it needs to be in the city code. And then the second thing and this may have just been a slip up or what have you, but the motion reads, be it ordered that the city council authorize the creation of an intercultural competency and awareness ad hoc committee and allow the mayor to confirm appointment to the committee as necessary. Procedure has always been mayor appoints, council confirms. So I would hope that's the intent here, and this would just be coming back to council at a later date to confirm the individuals that are appointed to it. And if that is, is that the intent?
Councilor Johnson, that is the intent of this,
All right,
is to make this work just like every other committee. And that I will make the appointments from those folks that are interested, and the council can confirm such as they've done with all the other committees.
I figured that much. So I would just move to amend the motion to be it ordered that the city council authorize the creation of an intercultural competency and awareness ad hoc committee, and just leave it at that. And then it would come back to council at a later date.
So, Councilor Johnston, in the background, that's not sufficient. It says the Intercultural Competency and Awareness Committee shall be composed of up to 21 members to be appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Is that not enough in the background of the?
The background's not the motion. So I just would say that the motion should support what the action is. And the action is that you'll appoint and that council confirm at a later date.
Would you like to make that amendment?
I believe I did.
Second,
The amendment has been made to add in that the mayor appoints and council confirms. Is that right, Councilor Johnson?
We could do it that way, or we could just leave it as be it ordered the city council authorize the creation of an intercultural competency and awareness ad hoc committee, with the understanding that per our council procedures, it's always mayor appoints, council confirms.
And is that okay with you, Councilor Copeland, as the amended language? Okay, any further? Councilor Copeland, that's a yes?
that's a yes.
Okay. With that, any questions about the amendment? Seeing no questions about the amendment and no objections, roll call vote on the amendment only. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
And Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes,
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes, and would you like us to submit people that are interested directly to you, Mr. Mayor, or to the city administrator?
Yeah, you can submit them directly to me, or they can go online to the city website and go through the city clerk boards and committees portion and get all that pertinent information down so that we can consider them at a later date.
All right, thank you.
Any further amendments? Councilor Johnson, I just wanted to answer your question from earlier. I did say that at the last meeting, the goals will, and the goals of the committee will be defined by the committee members as they come on board. However, the ultimate goal of this committee is to look at and consider our policies and any other actions or that need be for the eradication of racism and the tough discussions around certain things like that potential petition out there to rename Pepperell Square. So it's for those kind of things, but it's not just for that. It's for looking at all of our policies, looking at our council initiatives, look at the ordinances that we put in place, and then bring recommendations to city council. And it's always been my intent that if this gets off the ground is to codify it in the code. But the idea is getting it off the ground and getting it functioning before we go ahead and codify that.
Yeah, understood, and that's how I understood it. I'm just, addressing what particular individuals out there had questioned exactly what the specifics were, and again, that's why I said, if it rises to a level where there's actual powers of this committee, it would or it should be codified.
No, I definitely agree. So With that, if there's no further amendments on the main motion itself as amended, roll call vote, Councilor Archer
Aye.
and Councilor Purdy
Yes.
and Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland,
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail,
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Saco City Council members, for approving not only the resolution, but this all-important committee. Moving on to new business, we have new business item A memo to the City Council and City Administrator Kainrath from Richard Lambert, the Code Enforcement Director, regarding the unaccepted portion of Berry Road. Is Code Enforcement Director Lambert on with us? And if so, can he be promoted? Thank you, Andrew. Code Enforcement Officer Lambert, thank you for joining us this evening.
Pleasure to be here.
So we have this memo regarding the unaccepted portion of Berry Road.
Unaccepted portion of Ferry Road. Hold on.
Berry Road.
Berry Road. Oh, okay. Sorry. The air conditioner was on. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. There's a section of the Berry Road out at the end that's been a constant source of controversy for many, many years. Berry Road just continued to extend over a period of many years because we really didn't know what the status was until not too long ago, probably in 2005, when we finally figured out that the portion, the road was only accepted to a certain point, and that's where Crystal Lane begins. It's a private road off the Berry Road. And prior to that, we had always assumed that this was like an old public road that was never really constructed. It was laid out. It was always kind of there, similar to the Fenderson with what that whole thing back in many years ago. So we issued permits for a while for new homes to be constructed at the end of the Berry Road on the private or unaccepted portion of the Berry Road, not realizing what the status was. So there's probably, I want to say, half a dozen homes that are located in the unaccepted portion. After we became aware of what the status was, we stopped issuing permits. And then in 2005, there was a gentleman by the name of Eric Pickard who wanted to improve that portion of the Berry Road. And so the city council entered into an agreement with the folks out there and with Eric to bring that road up to a certain standard. That standard was less than a public road standard, but it was something that would afford those folks out there some services. And it was more or less, if the residents did this, the city council would accept it and would provide services at some point. Well, for whatever reason, that agreement was never fulfilled. And so we still have that portion of the Berry Road that's still in limbo. I refuse to issue any more building permits out there until I am safe in my thoughts that the city council is on board with this. And so we have been approached by two different parties of recent, one being Mr. Belanger, who owns a portion of land on the right side of the Berry Road heading out. portion of it that is on the public road and a portion of it that is not on the public road. It's on the unaccepted portion. And the other person that had approached us was Linda Valentino. Her and her husband, Kurt Scammon, own another piece of, I believe, and I'm not absolutely sure that Kurt and Linda both own it, but for whatever reason, Linda's the one that approached us and wanted to build a single house there, and that has actually applied for a building permit for a new home there. And that is sitting in my pending file until I can get some direction from the city council as to what they would like to do. Emily Cole Prescott, who's our city planner, has provided a great deal of research on this and has provided the council with some correspondence that she recently received from Linda Valentino. And I did not get anything from Mr. Belanger in writing, but he has been very I would say he wants to get he wants to be able to sell a piece of land to his grandson to build a house on the unaccepted portion of the road. And he has been talking to me on a regular basis to find out what the city council would like to do on that section. The city council, again, entered into an agreement in 2005. None of the council or the mayor or many in the administration are here now that were here in 2005. So we wanted this to be reviewed to see if the council would be willing to go on board with what the old council in 2005 did, whether or not that's still acceptable, or if there's something else that the city council wanted us to do with this portion of the Berry Road. So that's pretty much where we stand right now. I haven't issued any new permits out there for many, many years. I do have a pending application from Ms. Valentino. And I understand she is in the audience and may want to be recognized. That's up to you.
Mr. Lambert, I remember sitting as a counselor when this item came up not too long ago. I want to say 2016, 2017 timeframe.
That's right.
And there was a significant amount of money that needed to be put into the road to bring it up to standards. And I think it was around approximately $120,000. I might be
about 110, 115. You're not far off the mark.
Okay. And has that cost gone up or has that cost gone down?
Nothing goes down. We've had Joe Laveria take a look at the cost estimate, and I'm not sure how much research he did into it, but he gave us a revised cost estimate of about $150,000 since that time. And at that time, I believe the folks that were approaching us wanted the city to put that money in, because none of the residents that abutted that road were willing to pitch in to fund that improvement project. I'm not sure if that's changed. I believe it might have changed. We may be able to secure some funding from private parties that would benefit from getting this portion of the road brought up to a minimum standard. Again, not exactly to our public road standards that are found in the subdivision ordinance, but not that far away either.
So just so the council's aware of what's being asked of them here, is no decision today. They're just looking for a direction from some council comment on whether we go back to an MOU and revitalize an MOU that brings in community residents of that area into a MOU to repair this land, or is it being asked, I guess, of the city to expend the funds and then accept this road as a city road? Just so the council knows what they're being asked here. Mr. Lambert, is that correct? Am I?
That's essentially correct.
Okay.
The city planner may also be available to add to what I've offered so far.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Archer, Councilor Johnston, Councilor Purdy, Councilor McPhail all have their hand up. So Mr. Lambert, bear with us. They have some questions. Councilor Archer.
Yes, well, one, I just want to, whatever we do, I do support something related to this. I've been researching this as this is my ward, and I've spoken with both of those individuals that Mr. Lambert identified earlier today. I just want to first put out that I don't believe that we need to revitalize an MOU from 2005. For me, I consider that gone. This would be a new one. I don't believe we should ever be going back just because something happened for 15 years. I don't want to set a precipice where like 20 years from now, they're trying to get something that we agreed to upon today. So I see this as a separate act. It's an act that back in 2005 never happened. It was a project in which it bared multiple partners in order to get this project done. And in the end, it never came to fruition. The 2020 version, I'll call it, is again, this, our city engineer said it will cost about $150,000. And there is a single entity that is willing to pay that $150,000. So I almost see this as a perfect example of a public-private partnership in which the city should look into it, discuss is this as an option in which that one party presents the $150,000. And I don't need to be vague. It's actually in our packet. If you noticed on page 6, nope, sorry, let me scroll down. Page 6 is where it's identified as an estimate of 150,000. We all know what that means, but it's an estimate of 150,000. And then on page 7, yes, page 7, it is Linda Valentino, one of the persons that was identified earlier, who under question, or hold on, sorry, page 8, let's go down, page 9, my apologies, where she identifies in subsection 3 of the summary that she is willing to pay for this. For her to be able to front this, and again, now we have that one party who has the sole finances to make sure that this project can be completed. So again, I completely support a new version. Again, we should not be agreeing to, because it happened in 2005, this is different circumstances, cut 2005's agreement. And now let's look at a 2020 agreement in which now we move forward. It's been identified as the road doesn't exist, and I've been on it, so I know it physically exists. I've spoke with the person who lives on it too as well. So it is clearly there. One of the things that I'm very for is intergenerational families and things like that related to Saco. 2 of the properties that are being discussed are actually going to go through that intergenerational route. It's 2 of the owners in the area that are trying to give it or build for their family members. So again, it's got my full support. It's not a motion to vote on, I get that, but as of right now, I'd like to see this in the future. Thank you,
Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Archer. So just in the summary, it's in the summary on page 9, it says, if I pay to upgrade the 50-foot wide section of the abandoned Berry Road from Crystal Lane, the middle of my property, about 300 feet to city standards, can I then subdivide my property? That is a question that perhaps Emily Cole Prescott can answer if she's on. However, I want to go to Councilor Johnston's question first, and then some of the other councilors. So Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I would agree with Councilor Archer that this is totally separate from 2005. That's long gone. But specifically, I'd like to know what's changed since 2016, because the way I remember this leaving council was that council basically confirmed that the road was abandoned. That was it. We really didn't discuss an MOU then. We were just, the city's direction was, is this a road? Is it a private road? What is it? We determined it was abandoned. My feeling then remains today, which is if they follow the model that the Fenderson Road followed, then I'd be potentially supportive of accepting it. The problem with that, at least my belief, is that this council cannot encumber a future council. So as long as the person building this road understands that it's still potential, because if it's done this year, sure, it could come back to council and we could approve it through, the appropriate chapter of the code. If it's 3-4 years from now and it's a new council and we signed a document years ago, I would think that that could easily be challenged, because it has to go through the appropriate chapter of code. We can't today say we are going to accept a road, regardless of what, even in 2005, I think that was, again, an understanding that in the future, the road potentially could be, accepted if it met the requirements. So I guess my only other question for staff would be, if this went through the process of individuals building out this road to city standards, are there any outstanding conflicts or issues that may still exist? Because that's the other problem I don't really want to run into, which is we're now in conflict with other ordinances or code. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. I see the city planner, Emily Cole Prescott, has joined us. Emily, thank you for joining us this evening. Perhaps you can answer the question from Mrs. Valentino's summary on number 3 about subdivision if she pays for the upgrades to the section of road, and then Councilor Johnston's question regarding the regarding any unfinished business of that road. If I remember, there were some drainage issues out there in that section. So if there are any issues that still remain, identified.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To start with, I just would like to say that I completely agree. If the council was going to undergo a new MOU agreement, it would be something separate. We just included the previous MOU, so there was some past history on what had been done. As far as the outstanding conflicts or ordinances, we could refer back to the Fenderson model. I haven't read everything on Fenderson Road, but I don't know. I think that road, I'm not sure how long that road is, but according to some of our standards, we have limits on the lengths of roads, either 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet for dead ends. So this would extend past that, but I think there could be potentially an understanding that it developed over a number of years and it wasn't an intentional, maybe that ordinance wasn't in effect when it started to develop and it is kind of a non-conforming situation. So, so that would be a potential outstanding issue in the ordinance that would need to be looked at. I completely agree also that anything, I think you probably saw some notes in there from me, that anything that we would look at for city street acceptance would need to go through the right process to be reviewed by council under our ordinances. So somebody could propose a subdivision provided that they have frontage off of a publicly accepted street. But I would think that that process would need to happen before the subdivision would start, because you need to have some initial frontage off of a publicly accepted street. That would be my interpretation right now, without digging too much farther into it. And that is one of the reasons why this item is in front of council. We just want to make sure that we're headed in a general direction that the council agrees with, because in 2017, this item also came back through workshops with Kevin Sutherland and the council that was there then. And it looked like there was some initiative at that time. Some of that information is in the packet, I believe, to come to some resolution. And there was some work among staff with neighbors, and it looked like we came to a resolution that there was still private in that area. So I hope this helps with some of the history.
City Planner Prescott, thank you very much. Councilor Copeland?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few questions. I know it did come up once before, and we did listen to some arguments at that time. I took a ride up there yesterday, and I know our code enforcement officer says there's no building permits been issued, but there's a house under construction up there. So there's that. I'd like to also know if the fire department has any issues, because at the end there's kind of like, not an official looking turnaround spot. It's kind of a couple of short little jogs. And so if they have to have road frontage on a public road, and this is a private road, and we're going to allow them to build it to private road specifications, I'm wondering, and I don't know, are there different possible approaches? Maybe they could come in off the Boom Road or something and build, the road to specifications. I mean, imagine how many developers and other people have to pay to get the whole road built the way that it's supposed to be. So I'm just concerned about being fair-handed across the board. I appreciate that it's, just a little local neighborhood or whatever, but those are some concerns that I have.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Purdy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was up there last week, as well as with Councilor McPhail. We met Linda up there to see the property. I think the house that's under construction is on the public portion of the road. It's before Crystal Lane. This whole situation is kind of messed up. It's kind of a catch-22. It seems like no matter what direction we come at it, we're running into a roadblock. I mean, we can't do a subdivision because it's not a public road. And actually the road exceeds the standards for a private road, as my understanding anyway, as things are written now. But then only one of the property owners would be able to be issued a building permit, which obviously not everybody's going to be happy with that. So as far as the proper order to do things, I don't know, and because, like I said, every way I've approached this, I seem to run into a roadblock. But it seems like we should. We just need to work towards a solution on this.
Thank you, Councilor Purdy. Councilor Minthorn?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I see that Mrs. Valentino's hands up, and maybe we ought to let her speak to it and give us her side of it.
I've seen the hand. I've been monitoring it, but I wanted to give council the opportunity to ask questions of staff.
Thank you.
Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just was a procedural question I figured I would ask. Not paying any heed to any of the issues of the building permits and things, sort of just trying to get to the crux of the matter. Is there anything preventing us from, as a council, making some sort of resolution that we would, in principle, accept or move to accept the unimproved part of Berry Road if indeed it was brought up to the standards of being a public road? It would seem to me that while it may hamstrung a future council in terms of actually making the vote, at the same time, it seems to be the simplest way out of the situation, not to mention the most practical one, because if people want to actually build on the road, turning it into a public road seems to be the easiest way to go, especially considering if Mrs. Valentino is willing to was my understanding, foot the bill to get it up to speed. I mean, this seems to be a win-win, and then we can go back to the issue of who can build what at a later time.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. The council we could bring forward a resolution, but again, that resolution would only be germane to this council because it's this council that set that resolution. And, you know, so we could bring a resolution forward or somebody that wanted to purchase something could go ahead and fix the road and bring it up to standards and then bring it forward through the proper process to have the city accept the road. So there's multiple avenues that can be gone through. Okay. Councilor Copeland?
So it sounds like what you're describing is more like a contract zone.
No, it's not a contract zone.
I know, that's
No,
what I'm saying.
it's not a contract zone. What it is, if somebody wanted to spend the money to upgrade that, then they could go through the proper process to have it come through the planning board and come through city council and have the road accepted.
So
Just like we've done
she's
with
willing-
Trailside Circle, where we accepted that portion of the road, just as we've done with some of the other roads that have been brought forward. So
All right, because it exceeds the length and it exceeds this and that.
that's why it would have to go through the proper process to get approval before it would come to council for an up or down vote.
So we have one property owner that's willing to foot the bill to bring it up to not private road, but public road standards?
I don't know that that's the case. However, in the summary identified by Councilor Archer on page 9, there's number 3, and it says, if I pay to upgrade the 50-foot wide section of the abandoned Berry Road from Crystal Lane to the middle of my property, about 300 feet, to city standards, can I then subdivide my property? And Mrs. Valentino, who wrote that letter, is actually on the call, and we will hear from her. But I'm just trying to get through any council questions to staff, as some of the council is familiar with this parcel and this process as we dealt with it in 2017, and then some are not. So just trying to have everyone answer all their questions, and then we'll hear from Ms. Valentino.
Thank you.
City Planner Prescott, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just encourage, if the council is going to look at asking or accepting something where we have a developer who's going to pay to bring a section up to standard, I would encourage that we as staff be directed to reach out to Public Works Department and get the director's opinion on what that would entail, because I believe that there's also potentially some right-of-way that will need to be looked at as well. So the city engineer is from Public Works, as we know, and did provide us a cost estimate, but I would just recommend getting the Public Works opinion on that as well.
Thank you, Emily. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when I just asked if there's any other outstanding issues. So I would request that all department heads, review the proposal before it comes back to council to determine if there's anything out there that they may see or foresee as being an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Public Works Director Fox. Thank you for joining us this evening. Can you provide any insight after hearing some of the concerns voiced by some of the council?
Yes, I can, or just add to the confusion, more or less. It is a confusing topic. The The cost estimate that was first put together in 2016 or so and then updated was not to bring it to a full public road standard like what a developer would go do today. It had some compromises to it. Narrower width. The road's about 20 feet wide now. It was not to go and widen the road. One of the reasons it was meant for the people out there to sort of sort it out and all sign one agreement was there were right-of-way, there were property things that needed to occur, permissions from properties that are not owned by the parties that you're hearing from regarding drainage easements. The city would certainly require a sufficient turnaround area, which typically is going to be located within 40 to 80 feet of the end of the road, wherever that may be. So if you're only looking at a portion of it, you would need an adequate turnaround at that location. And the other thing I think you may want to clarify with anyone that's involved in it from the private side at this time is whether or not they're looking to pay and administer the project, or if they're looking to pay the city and ask Public Works to go through any design, construction, advertising, bidding, construction oversight. That would certainly be a burden on staff to go build an additional roadway that is unlike what we ask of private developers they fully design, build, and oversee. We may do some inspections, but we don't perform the construction. So you may want to clarify that as you move through this difficult topic.
Thank you, Director Fox. Any questions from the council for Director Fox? Councilor Minthorn.
Yes, thank you. Pat, would it be a kind of a natural spot to have the turnaround where Berry Lane intersects Berry Road? Since that's kind of most of the way through the parcel that they're talking about, and it's already an offshoot road there, so that might be a natural termination turnaround.
It could be. There were some areas that were already had some gravel base to them and would probably cost less money to bring up to a turnaround standard than just some other areas that may just be vegetated or something. So I think there's some flexibility as far as where that turnaround could be. And I think the one other thing to sort out is just how much development are you trying to support out there? If you're talking 1 or 2 houses, or are you talking all future subdividable land without getting back out to Boom Road or whatnot? If you're talking 15 houses, you probably want a more substantial turnaround and more substantial infrastructure. If you're talking 1, then maybe that's different. If it stays private, you still want a turnaround, but maybe not to the same standard as a city street. So where you're going to have city plows and trash trucks and whatnot on a daily basis. So a lot of considerations there, but I think the location of the turnaround is flexible depending on what level of build out you're trying to support.
Thank you.
Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. Director Fox, so at this point right now, we are coming down, are we plowing all of Berry Road to where it intersects with Crystal Lane and then stopping?
Yes, we plow the public portion, not the private portion. The exact turnaround location at the end of any of those sort of public to private roads can vary a little bit, but I believe the plow truck turns at Crystal and then comes back down the public portion of Berry Road.
Because is there a turnaround there? Because I know there's a cul-de-sac on, I believe it's Michelle Way, and then we have a bear hook down at the very end of the dead end.
Yeah, the plow
where
truck
there
would
are.
just, the plow truck would just turn onto Crystal, push the snow off to the side, and then back onto the private portion of Berry Road, and kind of use it as what we call a hammerhead, like a half of a T, and then utilize that to turn around.
Okay. And then again, as it was stated years ago, there was such confusion with that section that those houses on that portion are receiving services such as mail, I believe trash pickup. So it would make sense and in support of, I mean, if they're receiving those services already, for that, what is it, 880 feet section. You know, I'm in support of pushing this through, and again, with a new MOU, not going back with any old. And I think it's a benefit to all the residents in that area, either for the current development being proposed or future, as well as the existing ones if they ever needed to sell, or for us to have a section of road that is just abandoned on a very well-developed street. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that we really need to pursue this and look forward as to what we can get accomplished and hopefully finalized. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor McPhail. Planner Emily Cole Prescott, you have your hand raised. Is that from before or is that new?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to offer that we could provide some background on Fenderson Road, because that was mentioned earlier as a model to see what a past practice has been. I just don't have that off the top of my head. Maybe Dick does, because he has more history. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I think that might be a good idea to provide the council with some background on the Fenderson Road issue. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I was just going to make a statement as far as there's a lot that's gone on here, but you know, and I guess it's at times easy to say, oh, you know, common sense says we should do one thing, but at the end of the day, we're governed by our ordinances and our rules and our procedures. So yeah, I guess in an ideal world, we could just throw some asphalt down, call it good. But from what I've heard from Director Fox, I'm seeing at least 2 standards that now won't be met if we move forward with public acceptance. So much doesn't seem to have changed since the last time I heard about this. I mean, I look forward to, you know, something, but it looks like a lot more work needs to be done before it's even close to being ready for council to really consider much more.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Any further councilor questions for staff? Seeing no hands raised, I'm now going to Linda Valentino, you've been allowed to speak and promoted. Feel free to unmute and provide the council with some comment.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to address a few things. I've been taking some notes on various council questions, and I know Councilor Johnson, his big question was what has changed since this came before you several years ago, Councilor Johnson. So I want to say the big thing that has changed is that we came to a standstill after over 18 months of working on this with Dick Lambert, Bob Hamlin, and everybody else in the council, which I certainly appreciate. And what it came down to at the end was the money, is that nobody on the street other than myself was willing to pitch in. I've always been willing to pitch in, but at the time, nobody on the street would pitch in. We did have a petition that everybody on the street except Mr. Belanger signed and gave to the city council saying that they wanted that 880 feet of the road to become a public road on it. The second thing that stalled us was Mr. Belanger. Mr. Belanger refused to participate in anything that we were doing and would not grant the drainage easement over his property. So that's kind of the path. What it started was I asked for a building permit on March 10th, 2017. So I've been waiting over 3 years for one building permit, just one building permit. And now Mr. Belanger has come up and he wants a building permit. And Dick Lambert has said that I was first and that if you determined it was a private road, then only I would get that one building permit that was left. Mr. Belanger would not. So that's why I started thinking about it. And In all honesty, I've kind of bit the bullet and realized that there's not a single person on that street who's going to contribute a dime to that road. So I am willing to contribute the $150,000. I have 28 acres out there, and I have asked repeatedly what I can do with the property, and my answer pretty much has been nothing. I asked if I could access it through Crystal Lane, and I was told no. I was asked if I could access it through the Pickard property, and I was told no. I was asked if I could go to subdivision and divide it, and I was told no. So I have 28 acres of land that has been sitting out there that I can do absolutely nothing with. I cannot even get one building permit to put one single house up there. So it is worthless land. You have to remember the Berry Road is divided into 3 sections. It is a public road, then it goes to an abandoned road, and then it goes to a private road. So there are 3 unique sections to that road. So that's why we're looking to make it the public road, and why I would be willing to pay for it, because I can't even build one house out there. And right now, my daughter-in-law's sister wants to buy the lot that I have. And I went through the expense when Dick Lambert had said, submit a building permit. And thank you, Dick. I appreciate all the work you've done. I surveyed it, I soil tested it, I got a building plan, and I submitted it all. So that's really what has happened since then. And so what some of you were reading from the letter that I had sent to Emily. Since that time, I didn't realize it was going to the council. I only found out from Emily it was going to the council last Saturday, and then I wrote a respond email, and that's when you had to pull it from the agenda because I respond. So you need to not look at what I told Emily, but what I've responded to. So I am willing to go the 150,000, not the 110. And I am willing to go for, and that 150,000 is for the whole 880 feet, not just to the middle of my property, because I understand if we're going to resolve the issue, we need to resolve it. The road that's currently there, as mentioned to another counselor, is above the private road standards. So if you just accept it right now as a private road, that's fine. I can get my building permit, but nobody else can get a building permit. That's fine with me. I get my building permit. If you say it's a private road, great, I get my permit. But I've been through this, and I've been through this with everybody in town and all the city officials and the people on the Berry Road. And I just think the best way is to have the city of Saco accept that 880 feet because you have 2 private roads off of that. And in answer to the turnaround in the Hammerhead, I just wanted to mention also that after the abandoned road section is a private road that was approved by the city of Saco, and that does have a hammerhead at the end of the private road. So like I said, you're going from public road to abandoned road to private road. So I just feel that I can't do anything with my land. And that's why I wrote to Emily, what can I do? And basically she said nothing. And actually she said, unfortunately, nothing. But so that's why I'm coming back to you. It's that this has been around for 20 years at least, if not longer. I mean, I have letters from Bob Cassette, who used to be on the council, saying that the town always plowed it, you know, back there in the 70s and stuff. But I don't want to go back. And I absolutely agree with Councilor Archer that I don't think we need a memorandum of understanding with all the people on the road. As long as I'm paying for it, they want it. What it comes down to, though, is that you, in order to make it either a private road or a public road, you need to get 5 easements from the abutting property owners. And I'm one of them, and Mr. Belanger is the other one. And he was, so in the city of Saco, the city solicitor had offered to draw up those 5 easements because they're the same 5 easements that were done on the private road section that were drafted by the city of Saco. So it's just a matter of changing names and changing that. So in other words, I can't do anything with my property unless we get those 5 easements signed. Mr. Belanger was the only one who would not sign it last time. Now he wants to do something, so I'm assuming we could get those 5 easements signed. Once we get the 5 easements signed, you have 2 choices. You could, well, 3 choices. You could do nothing. You could accept it as a private road, which is above and beyond private road standards, and only I get a permit. Or you could accept it, my 150,000, and accept it as a public road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valentino. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Copeland.
I was just curious. Thank you for coming before us, Linda. Pat Fox was here, maybe still on. He was talking about who's going to build the road. So I'm just wondering what your intentions are in that regard.
Can you hear me, Lynn?
We can hear you, Linda.
You can hear me. Okay. My intention when I wrote the letter was to give you $150,000 and let you figure it out. If that's not going to happen, then we need to sit down with Patrick Fox and see what's going to happen. I think it's a unique situation because there's already a road in place and it was built to city specifications. It was, I think, Milliken who had inspected it every stage of the way. So it had been built to city specifications and it was allowed at the time to be a little narrower. And the only reason it's narrower is because it is the exact same width of the existing Berry Road. So nobody was going to redo the public Berry Road to make it wider. And this was just continuous, making it the exact same width as the Berry Road. And that's why it was allowed to proceed at this width. And so I guess I would need guidance from the council on that. I mean, as far as I was concerned, you could take the $150,000 and not do a thing to the road because the road's better than the Berry Road is right now. The abandoned road is better than the Berry Road, or you could fix the road, or you could have me fix it or do whatever. But I just feel like it's been unfair that I have 28 acres and I cannot do a single solitary thing to it. And I've tried, and everybody who's been there, I think knows, you know, Bob Hamlin before and Dick Lambert, and I've really tried to resolve this issue.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any other questions? Director Fox, are you still there?
Yes, yep.
Director Fox, after hearing that, you have any further comment for the council to consider?
Just trying to open some old emails with the exact breakdown of the costs. I know the majority of it is paving, but there is some excavator work for widening of the gravel shoulders and some ditching for drainage. And then I do not believe any the turnaround space is actually paved. So there was gravel and paving on the turnaround. Those are the ones I know off the top of my head. I can't find the email from a few years back at the moment. You'll have that in front of you for consideration when you make a decision on that.
Thank you, Director Fox. Councilors, any questions further? Councilor Johnston.
Well, it's not a question. It's just, I mean, I think Director Fox has already made it pretty clear that his department's not really looking to build out this road. So whatever we do going forward, that needs to be dealt with, at least in my opinion, in a different way. I think they probably have enough on their plate as is. So it's just 1 of 7.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Any further discussion? Councilor Copeland.
Well, I appreciate that Pat spoke and Linda spoke, but I remain in the same place. Our city isn't, we don't just like build roads for development. That's not what we do. And I would be against our city doing it. I think that that's a developer's responsibility.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Ms. Valentino, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I guess in response to Councilor Copeland's is that you're not building a road for a developer. If I want to develop my property, I'm going to build my own road and pay for my own road. I think being extremely generous to pay $150,000 for 10 people that have already built houses out there and aren't willing to pitch in a dime to help out, and I'm willing to do it. I cannot develop that road unless the city of Saco gets those easements and does something with that road. And so I ask you, what do you want me to do with the 28 acres if you won't even allow me to go to subdivision and build a road? And I wanted to also note that I do have the breakdown, Patrick, for you, that on the road with all of the stuff. So if you need me to email it to you, I have it in my hand right here on the, it was $111,000, and that included a $10,000 contingency on it. So it does show exactly what needed to be done on it. So I guess I just want to say that I think I'm being extremely generous to pay the entire cost instead of dividing it among 10 people out there. And you're not building a road for a developer. I want a house lot accepted as a private road, and I get my permit and I go away. But that doesn't help anybody else.
Thank you, Linda. In your email to Director Fox, can you also include the council on that as well? So council@sacomaine.org, and that would be very helpful.
Or I can just send it over to Patrick, and then he can send it over to you, because I found out I'm not supposed to send stuff, I guess, to you.
I can circulate. Joe Laverrier is just not sitting here with me right now, and I can't find it in my old emails as I'm trying to participate as well. So yeah, we will circulate that so that everyone has it.
Okay, it was dated for workshop item A, date August 1st, 2016. So it's been 4 years.
Linda, you can always send something to me, bdoyle@sacomaine.org. And if you ask me to share it with council, I'll make sure they get it.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll send this over to Patrick.
Thank you. Councilor McPhail, then Councilor Minto, and then Councilor Purdy. Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. Just a quick one. Linda, when you purchased the property, what was the road classified as?
When I purchased the property, everyone that I knew was under the assumption it was a private road. And it wasn't until I went in for the building permit, and then Dick Lambert had said that there was only one permit more for the private road. And I said, well, what if I wanted to do more? Because I've got enough for 3 lots out there on the road. And so then we started investigating it. Dick and Bob Hamlin went through a lot, and they said, well, the cleanest way this has been trying to go is to figure out what's happened to the road. And that's when, even though it was abandoned in 2005, I didn't find that out until we went to a council meeting, and Tim Murphy brought that back up and dug that out. Everyone on the road, including myself when I bought it, thought it was a private road. But
And
it's
because
not.
the permit brought up the research and found out that no, in fact, it was. So when you purchased it, you were under the assumption, and the city, that it was private. And
Yes,
that you
I
would
was
be
under
able to either develop or sell, or however you chose to do with it.
Right.
That it was usable land.
Yeah, and there's never been a sign there that says private. I mean, I live on a private road and my sign says, you know, Sod Farm Lane private. And there's no distinction on the Berry Road once you get to Crystal Lane, that when you continue on that pavement for another 880 feet, that it's an abandoned road that you're driving on, or even a private road. But
okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McPhail. Councilor Minthorn.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I remember a lot of this from 2016, 2017, when it was before us before, and there was some drainage easement issues that were there, along with widening of the shoulders and some of the other stuff that Pat noted and that Linda noted that in the document she's going to send out. As we all know, Saco isn't a perfect place, and this is one of those, I think, exceptions, kind of in the same manner that we granted a deed to the UU Church that hadn't been granted since 1842. You know, this is one of those, I think it's an exception, not necessarily to set the rule book aside, but I think what we need to do is we all need to get together. We all need to work on a common solution that's going to help the property owners that are there with the issue at hand. And if we can resolve that and bring it to a full private road standard, which would allow a number of things to take place, then maybe that's what we should do. And if there's sufficient interest in the development, maybe at some point Linda would consider, you know, having whatever road she has into Saco Terrace continue on down to either Sod Farm and out to Boom Road or whatever, to alleviate the dead end nature of, you know, Berry Road in its current form. But, you know, this is one of those unique examples in town where we have a 4,000-foot private, public, abandoned, whatever road that really requires all of us to work together and resolve it for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. There was another hand raised, but it looks like it's no longer there. Any last questions, comments? Ms. Valentino, thank you for joining us tonight.
thank you.
So, Mr. Lambert, City Planner Prescott, I think there's seems to be some consensus to do something. So maybe perhaps bringing forth some options for the City Council to consider at a future meeting might generate some more discussion and then ultimately a vote.
I suspect if we use the 2005 agreement and look at what we did in the Fenderson Road situation, putting those two together, we might be able to come up with some sort of framework for you to take a look at.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. There's no objection. We'll move on to the next item, item B, which is zoning site plan and subdivision ordinance revision, project completion timeline. Councilor Johnston is the council resource.
Thank you. On February 20th, 2018, the City Council voted to adopt the 2018 updated Saco's comprehensive plan, which was a result of 2 years of review and discussions by an ad hoc committee and staff. On October 15th, 2018, the City Council established the Zoning Ordinance Revision Steering Committee to work with the selected consultants TZM Planning and EF Design and Planning LLC, who were chosen as a result of competitive RFP process. That work included a survey initiative with over 1,000 respondents and a well-attended charrette, as well as multiple meetings about the direction of the zoning, site plan, and subdivision ordinances. The consultants and ZOR Steering Committee produced drafts 1, 2, 3 of the ordinances, which were under review through October 2019. In October 2019, the Planning Board and Historic Preservation Commission hosted meetings and public hearings to review and forward reports on the proposed draft 3 ordinances to the City Council. On November 4th, 2019, the City Council held its public hearing and referred the zoning, site plans, subdivision ordinances, and zoning map to the Planning Board for further review. At this meeting, the City Council also accepted the Planning Board and Historic Preservation reports on the proposed historic preservation section the draft 3 ordinances and approved the second and final reading of the Historic Preservation Ordinance on November 18th, 2019. Since December 2019, the project has been staff-led, and the ZOR Steering Committee and Planning Board have met in workshops to review remaining items of the draft ordinances. The time, energy, and effort that the committee and board members have dedicated to extra workshops time should be commended. The Planning Board and ZOR Steering Committee have reviewed this proposed completion timeline after the June 30th and July 14th workshops and have provided consensus to move forward with the anticipated schedule. There's staff and the ZOR Steering Committee and the Planning Board support this project completion timeline and recommend that the City Council support this schedule. I move to support this proposed completion timeline, knowing that it may be subject to revision as the project moves toward completion.
So the timeline, just so everyone's aware, is exhibit item 1 on page 53 of 54, which rehashes some of the dates here for August 4th, 11th, 18th, September 1st, September 15th, September 28th, September 30th, October 7th, October 16th, October 26th, November 9th, and November 16th for a council vote. If everyone's okay with this and there's no objection, this will become an action item at the August 3rd meeting to be voted upon by the City Council. Okay, seeing no objection. Thank you very much. And then we come to item C, which is the beach safety protocols. As you can see from the memorandum here, the short memorandum on a very important comprehensive topic regarding beach safety and parking and what have you. So it's been well noted, and we've received a considerable amount of public input on this through several emails and some public comment during council meetings and the news reports that that came out on this. So I thought it was important to put it on the agenda and start having some council discussions. And I did ask, it was during Brian's vacation, I did ask that Pat Fox talk to some city department heads and come up with some solutions. So City Administrator Kainrath, have those talks produced any considerations for a council to consider for beach safety and protocols?
I do not have anything in hand, but if Pat Fox is still on, maybe we'd like to hear from him if he has any other background, but I don't have anything specific in hand.
Thank you. We're promoting Pat now.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Director Fox, thank you for joining us again. We talked a little bit during the during your acting or assistant city administrator role on that week when we had some issues down at the beach regarding beach safety protocols, social distancing, mask wearing, and parking issues. Since then, there was an ask from the mayor to come up with ideas on how we move forward in a safe manner and how we can keep it from limiting any sort of beach access.
There have been discussions with police, Parks and Rec, Public Works about different measures. I think, and the complaints sort of have and the comments from the public have a general theme, but they do vary slightly by neighborhood. So I think probably one of the latest proposals that'll be discussed Thursday night at the Traffic Safety Committee would be the limiting of parking along Seaside Ave. It has not been publicly noticed, so it would have to be a temporary measure endorsed by the committee and then brought up for more of a permanent status, but the 90-day applicability could happen right away. That seems to be addressing a lot of the parking, safety, bikes in conflicts with cars, that type of thing. We do not have any additional signage at all of the beach walkways at this time. I think that's one that's come up over the last few days as a recommendation as well from the public.
And Director Fox and City Administrator Canrath, have we received any grants or any federal dollars to do more signage? I believe we were due to receive some money from Keep Maine Healthy, which is an initiative that funds some of this signage output out of the CARES Act money. And have we received any of that money or grants?
I don't know if we actually have it here yet, but obviously everyone knows that we were allocated funds through that. But I will just say if the issue is going to be signage, I think that's an easy fix that we could start with. If we want to do some enhanced signage at the beach entrances, addressing, there's a couple issues here. One, piping plovers, two, social distancing, and all the things related to COVID. I think that would be an easy place for us to start. Maybe something larger, more visible. Obviously, when you're heading onto the beach, you're not always looking at every little sign that the city or the state or someone puts out for directing you to do something. So I think that would be an easy place for us to start. If there's consensus in doing that, I'm sure that's not much of a problem.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. And again, so at this point, councilors, you've heard some of the complaints from the community. You've heard, and I know Councilor Copeland and I have received numerous emails from folks down in her ward that are impacted firsthand by these issues from Seaside and Kinney Shores and Bayview and Camp Ellis. And so it's an all-important issue that we need to start talking about. But I mean, let's be honest, this parking issue didn't evolve overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. What I would like to see is the Traffic Safety Committee review this over the next several months and come up with a comprehensive parking program for next year that will address from Camp Ellis to Kinney Shores and to the Old Orchard line, that will address all the issues down there, provide it to council for council to authorize any kind of expenditures that come with that, or any kind of initiatives that we need to come with that. But do the committee work of dealing with the parking issues and the safety issues under the Traffic Safety Committee, and then move that forward. That is my hope, that we can get that done in the next 8 to 10 months. But again, I just want to remember that this issue didn't form overnight. And it's something we have to take a long look at and not have a knee-jerk reaction to things that are going on. COVID has played a significant role in everything we're doing. So we have to react to that, but we react with thoughtful and reasonable approaches. And that is my thought process on that. And I see a couple hands up. So Councilor Copeland, then Director Fox. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really glad that this is on the agenda. It's something that has been a long time coming. You're right. It didn't happen overnight. And it's true that the situation is exacerbated because of the pandemic, but it's been there before. You know, it's every year it's the same thing. I've been hearing from my constituents, it's the same thing. I forwarded you all the emails from my constituents and I'd like to read them. First, before I forget, I wanted to mention to Mr. Cainrath, if you're going to make signs, please also ask them to take out their trash and also to clean up after their dogs. Those are two big points that really could ruin somebody's day. And not to mention, it's not healthy.
Councilor Copeland, how many emails are you going to read? Because I know you received quite a bit, as did I. So,
10.
I would like it if you would submit those to the rest of the council.
I did.
And the city clerk to include in the
record. What I was looking for and what you talked about was, it says a discussion. I think it's time to start a discussion. And I think that people watching may not take the time to wait for our minutes to come out and they'll forget all about it. There are some really, really good points in here. One of which is that we have a great resource in our community, Ferry Beach State Park Association. No, I apologize, not them. Ferry Beach State Park, not association. So we have a state park right here with ample parking. They don't allow people to park on, people are not permitted to park alongside on Bayview, and that's okay, and that's really good. So what we've done is created something that our neighboring towns haven't. Our neighboring towns have parking permits. So while the beaches remain public, to park, you have to have a residential parking permit. And so it's reasonable that people could go to Ferry Beach State Park where they have bathrooms and garbage cans and so forth. And if they wanted to spread out on the beach, they could. You know, if they don't have to stay right there under the lifeguards if they don't choose to. So that's access. And that's good access. So what I've heard from many of my constituents, and I include myself in this because I won't even go to the beaches now. The parking is ridiculous. People are all over the place and, you know, just disrespectful. So we have our own residents who can't even go to the beach in the summertime. And I find that unacceptable. So I know you don't want me to read all 11 of these, but let me just, at that point, hit some high points. Just my constituents have taken some time, and my constituents and all of our constituents, right, have taken some time and fleshed out their concerns. So I will try and read as fast as I can. One writes, I've been a resident of Kinney Shores for 10 years, and this summer I've seen the most cars and traffic in our neighborhood as well as along Seaside Avenue. I live along Oceanside Avenue, and the number of trash items we pick up has increased. Broken flip-flops, boogie boards, beer cans, to name a few. Honestly, I know we live in a public beach, and I don't mind the increased traffic from Saco residents during the summer and during these coronavirus times. I'd rather see people outside enjoying our beach, but would hope that they would be respectful of the neighborhood. Parking continues to be an issue with signs that are confusing. People continue to squeeze 3 cars where there should only be 2, and it makes getting out of driveways dangerous and difficult. This resident proposes hash marks painted on the streets to indicate legal parking spots to avoid confusion along the lines of what is in downtown Saco. All right, I understand the piping plovers are an issue and it's a real tragedy, but the parking situation is dangerous to people's lives. There are a ton of people walking down the street. And if you can't see out your driveway because people have parked too close to the edge, it's an accident waiting to happen. And I realize the response is to call the parking code enforcement officer, but wouldn't marking and prevention be a better option? That was from Lisa Gorman on 44 Oceanside Drive. I have a letter that came from Mark and Ellen Gross, 87 Oceanside. One of them, she says, when Route 9 Seaside Avenue was widened some years ago, a state official addressed the Kinney Shores Association at its annual meeting about the project. The official stated that as part of the widening project, no parking would be permitted on either side of Route 9, and that there would be a dedicated bike lane. Now, the cars routinely park along one side of the entire stretch of Route 9 in the Kinney Shores Bayview Avenue. There is not enough space for cars to park on the side of the road, so the parked cars take up space on the actual roadway, forcing cars driving by to hug the middle line or worse. People exiting their cars on the driver's side must step directly into this very busy road, allowing cars to park on either side of Route 9 Seaside Avenue, make it very dangerous stretch of the road. As originally promised, no parking should be allowed on either side of Route 9 Seaside Avenue. Her next point number 2, is because all the east-west streets in Kinney Shores are narrow, most of them do not allow parking. For some reason, Shore Avenue, also very narrow, allows parking on one side. When cars park on Shore Avenue, 2 cars cannot pass each other on the street. One always has to either back up onto Seaside or Oceanside, or pull into private driveways or onto lawns to let the other car pass. Most important, it is very difficult to see children coming out between the parked cars to go to the beach or to ride their bicycles. Finally, despite signage, cars on Shore Road park right up to the corners, making it very dangerous to turn onto Route 9. Cars are also allowed to park on one side of much of Oceanside Drive. Oceanside Drive is not a wide street. When cars are parked on Oceanside, the people in homes across from the parked cars find it almost impossible to pull out of their driveways. Unless the driveway is 3 cars wide, there simply is not enough room between the end of the driveway and the parked cars to make that necessary 90-degree turn. And her final point is restricting parking in this area will not deprive the public of access to the public beach. There are 3 parking lots at Bayview, as well as ample parking in Ferry Beach State Park. In addition, both those areas have bathroom facilities, which Kinney Shores does not. Let's see. Let's try and be. All right. This is from Craig Wood. He lives out in Marshall's Ward, and he is on the Shoreline Commission, and he writes, I've been going to the beach quite a lot over the last 7 to 8 weeks, and I'd like to share my observations. I've gone fishing off the jetty 6 times in the last 4 weeks. Social distancing has been very good. There are not many masks being worn, but there was also not much congestion. I did not feel the need to wear my mask and kept it in my pocket. My family and I use primarily the beach entrances off Dune Avenue and Outlook Avenue. There are 3 groups of us traveling separately. We meet and keep our distances. Everyone has a mask, but we do not wear it a lot. Social distancing has been more than adequate except for the large groups. There can be anywhere from 5 to 25 people who feel it necessary to sit in close proximity to the rest of the group. The beach access ramps at these 2 locations normally work out fine as people wait for the group ahead of them to exit at either end. Saturday, July 18th was an exception. Lots of people and social distancing was not what it should be. Parking at Piney Woods, Dune, Outlook, and Oceanside Drive has been adequate, though very busy. The overflow parks on Seaside and walks. Bayview is of course an issue between the public parking on Seaside, overflow. This access and beachfront are overwhelmed. People are not social distancing well and most do not wear masks. I was there yesterday to observe the beach and the beach access. Most groups upon exiting the beach access find a spot with little distancing from others. As the day goes on, the congestion gets very excessive. Very few people wear masks. The parking area with the public restroom was overwhelmed. I would estimate there were 50 people all waiting on someone else in their group before going to their cars. I believe the issue is at Bayview. The issue is at Bayview and can be managed by the city of Saco. The city of Saco gets revenue from the parking. It does not monitor the goings on. It is their responsibility to manage this location, take the time and effort to manage Bayview, and the complaint and issues will go away. Okay, so that's from him. Okay, this one here is from John Cannon, a resident at 56 Plymouth. I've discussed this very topic with my family, friends, and neighbors over the years, both from the perspective as a homeowner and a shoreline cottage rental owner in Saco. It seems odd that the citizens of Ward 4 can't go to adjacent towns' beaches due to the parking regulations and expensive permits required, but when my family attempts to go to our own beaches, we need to compete for access from non-residents. It doesn't pass the smell test for the citizens of Saco, especially Ward 4, who would just like a perk once in a while after paying the high taxes that we do to live near, enjoy, and access the beach in a safe, non-crowded manner. There's that one, this one. All right. This is from Pam Cardin. She is, I don't remember the exact address. Thank you for bringing, all right. Yesterday we saw the largest crowd yet down here in Kinney Shores. Seaside Avenue was crowded with cars and we had a second report of a cyclist almost getting clipped. The beach was crowded with no possible way of social distancing and I only saw a handful of masks. The Plover area was surrounded by beachgoers, most of who were clueless as to why the area is roped off. I suggested in the past that we prevent parking on Seaside during this pandemic to limit the traffic. I do not understand why the city is turning a blind eye. An officer was asked last week to ticket a car on Piney Woods blocking a driveway, and he said as long as she could get out of the driveway, they're fine. I reminded him that the cars have to be 10 feet away and that the car was blocking at least 3 feet of the interior of the driveway. He did not ticket. The parking enforcement officer drove by 2 cars illegally parked on the corner and was called by a neighbor. Oh, and then she was called by a neighbor. Then she called the police for them and asked why they were not ticketing. They set him back down. He ticketed only after a complaint. We understand the police department is busy and clearly annoyed and by reports of illegally parked cars. There are solutions to these issues and we're only asking for the city to work within our community. For now, please keep these crowds low by limiting parking, allowing us to mark possible parking spaces on our streets. If the city feels that they cannot police the crowds, shut down the beach for the next few weeks. Our numbers are going up. This community is scared. And she thanks me for speaking up. All right, this is from Brian Mulla Howard. And I don't know what his address is. Today was nuts down here in terms of outsiders coming into Kinney Shores and filling every available parking spot, including illegally within 10 feet of driveways. We did not venture to the beach today over concerns of the overcrowding and non-compliance with social distancing. We are particularly concerned with the parking along Seaside Avenue. What was meant to be a bike path was full of parked cars all the way from Goosebear Brook to Bayview. Just the other day, I had to yell across the street to a mom who wasn't paying attention to her young children nearly walking right into traffic, right in front of our home. She had no idea. Something needs to be done to avoid a serious incident, not to mention to address our COVID concerns with the large crowds. I might add that it is upsetting that Bayview Road is all no parking with only a handful of residents who live along that stretch. And they have a sidewalk where people could safely walk down to the beach. From what I understand, there used to be parking along there. I believe there should be parking along that road to relieve the congestion down our way. In any case, that is my perspective. It would be great to take some form of action to address these issues. Let me see, there's one more.
Councillor Copeland, I think the point you're trying to make is very clear. And
I hope so.
I think, as I said before, that's why it's on the agenda to talk about. And that's why it's something that, again, as we stated earlier, has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, but it has been a long-standing issue that has not evolved overnight. And I think that's why we need to look at a comprehensive approach to solving that.
I agree, but I think that we all of the counselors needed to hear from the people on this, because we can say we're going to have a committee, we're going to have this. An important thing is for people to be heard. And so tonight they had that opportunity.
And I can appreciate you advocating for your constituency and bringing forward those issues, those important issues to light. So we will look at this and we will take some of those suggestions into consideration. And I think the Traffic Safety Committee is the important committee to do the work of parking and traffic safety.
Do you know when they meet and where and what time? Because I imagine that there are people who'd like to go.
They have a meeting this coming Thursday, as Director Fox mentioned, but it hasn't been noticed what the agenda is. But this will not be able to make it onto that agenda, I'm sure. But we will get it. It's usually on Thursday nights. And Councillor Johnston and Councillor Minthorn sit on that committee. Councillor Johnston, do you normally meet on Thursday nights?
Yes.
What time and where?
6:30. It's usually at City Hall, the conference room, but I think we're doing it via Zoom, obviously.
So will they be able to find the Zoom information on the website?
I will send you the agenda. How's that?
Well, I think that's great, but I think it should be out there publicly.
Well, I agree, but I don't control the website. So what I would like to say,
I was hoping you would put some pressure on and get it done properly. The committees are supposed to all be noticed and posted.
Hold on, Councillor Copeland. Thank you. City Administrator Canrath, can you make sure that the traffic safety agenda and the traffic safety Zoom address is placed on the city website, clear so that folks can look at that, as well as any other committee that meets is posted on the website and has clear URLs for any Zoom meetings or if they're going to meet in person, whether it be outside or inside, that information gets on there as well.
Thank you very much.
We'll have that on the website.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. With that said, Councillor Johnston, we will get to your question, but there were two councillors prior to Councillor Gunn and then Councillor Minthorn and then Councillor Johnston. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to your point about having a long-term comprehensive plan to deal with the parking, I fully agree with that. Like you said, did not start overnight. My concern is with the reports of the lack of social distancing and the masks not being worn. And I know as councilors, and the mayor, we've all been receiving those form letters from some constituents that are filled with, pardon the bluntness, provable lies about the the ineffectiveness of masks and social distancing. In that spirit, regardless of the signs down at that we put down at Bayview and Kenny Shores and whatnot, I think we're a little past the point of people simply obeying a sign without any physical presence to enforce it. And certainly I don't want to see the residents of Saco have to take it upon themselves to try and enforce infractions and people demonstrating inconsiderate behavior, given the propensity for people to get quite hostile to people who are going to attempt to correct behavior, whether it's inconsiderate or, in this case, against the mandate from Augusta. I would like to see us talk about having some sort of actual enforcement down there in terms of the masks and social distancing. I think in regards to a couple of the letters that Councilor Copeland read, yes, if you're the only person in a certain area, then it goes common sense. You don't have to really wear a mask if there's no one around. But at the same time, when you have weekends like we had where people are crowded and people are walking in close proximity to each other, and the ordinances aren't being, the directives from Augusta are not being followed, it gets to the point where we're going to have a situation, whether it's people from Saco not following the directive or from people out of town not following the directive, that our numbers are going to go up. And I'm of the opinion that if you don't, to use a succinct term, if you don't wear a mask in 2020, you're going to be wearing one in 2021. And the parking issue being what it is, I think if we can at least, nip the issue of public health in the bud right now, while we have the ability to, I think that's what our focus should be. And I would look to see if the city has any resources in terms of staff, in terms of policing, to try to get people to do the right thing. Because, as I said, we've gotten to the point where even our numbers in Maine are going up. And if you look at a map, New England has been plateaued, and our numbers have been going down, but now they're going back up. And it's just a common sense thing. We have to get this thing under control. And fortunately, being Saco, we don't have as much beach as Old Orchard, or maybe as close to Scarborough. But the part is, my point is, we don't have as much that we have to police as our southern neighbors. And I think if we have the resources, perhaps budget amendment or whatnot, to get people down there, to get people to behave themselves, for lack of a better term, and I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but if we can do it, then I think it's something we should look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. I just want to point out that Andrew has forwarded in the chat portion that if you will go to the City of Saco and you go to the government section, and then you go to boards and committees, and then you go to traffic safety, there is a traffic safety meeting update for July 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. There is a URL for the Zoom meeting. There is a webinar ID, and there's a dial-in number as well. There's also a traffic safety agenda. For anyone looking to get information on committees and when they're meeting, feel free to go to that. Again, that is the home website, and that is the government page, and that is the board and committees page, and that is then it's the individual board and committee that you would like to get some information about. With that, Councilor Gunn, thank you for your comments. Enforcement, on enforcement, Councilor Minthorn, then Councilor Johnston, then Councilor Copeland. Councilor Minthorn.
Well, gee, how should I start this off? I'm the one who dropped the grenade. I don't know. That being said, I read the approximate 270 comments between the Saco Moms and Dads Facebook page, all the emails I've received, plus the original post that I had made and all the comments associated with that. I found it interesting that that was posted Monday around lunchtime. Friday, we received a note from Parks and Rec Director Summer stating they saw a 50% increase in the masks being worn by the lifeguards at Bayview. Well, if that's the case, I don't think that my original post, which more pointed fingers at our tourist crowd, I don't think they were reading our posts. I'm sure they weren't watching the mayor Tuesday night on the Channel 8 News. Sorry, Mayor. But obviously, those were locals that are going to the beach. They're not putting a mask on. And now all of a sudden they're putting a mask on. Now, my post was obviously premature. However, there was a great deterrence effect to that post when you see a 50% increase in the mask wearing at the beach 4 days later. And I think, as Councillor Gunn pointed out, and Councillor Copeland read in many of her emails, and I have heard time and time again, I think there's two basic issues here. One is dealing with the public health issues surrounding COVID. The second is dealing with the public safety issues surrounding our entire beachfront area. You're not going to solve the beachfront area short of traffic safety, passing some of the emergency orders for no parking on Seaside and some of that. We're not going to fix it, a 20-year problem, in a 1 hour, 2 hour meeting on Thursday night. I think we need to be given time to come up with a comprehensive plan to address parking at the beach, address maybe taking some of the roads out there that are two-way roads, making them one-way roads with a parking lane during the beach season. Yes, it'll be a little inconvenient having to drive one way, but it may provide a greater public safety factor by doing that. And that's something that may be a reasonable trade-off from Memorial Day to Labor Day or something along that line. As one idea was pointed out to me in an email, that was their suggestion for some of the Kinney Shores related parking issues. Not saying it'll happen. Obviously, it needs to be looked at. Obviously, the whole area needs to be looked at. We've got a 20-plus-year-old evolving problem that hasn't been addressed. I'm sure Chief Clements has his input. I'm sure Chief DeRoss would have his input from the fire EMS side. And I'm sure former planner Hamlin and the bicycle committee would have their input for some of the things that need to be done out there. But I think Councillor Gunn got its point on. We need to spend some money. We need to get some signs out there directing people how to use the beach access pass, whether it's you wait for the person on the other end to come through, or you go through, or you wear masks and go side by side, whatever it might be. I think we need to address those issues and address them quickly for the remainder of this season. Obviously, we don't want to be known as the place that blew up on COVID, let alone have a loss of life because a little one ran between two cars and got hit. And both of those would be very terrible for our community. And I would not want to be sitting here knowing we could have done something and didn't do it. So I think we're all in that boat. I'm not sorry I posted. I really am not. We saw a 50% increase in 4 days, which proves to me it's a local problem, not a tourist problem. The parking is a tourist problem. I get it. There are some tourists that are definitely not wearing masks and all that. I get that. But you're not going to see a 50% increase from tourists reading posts or watching the Channel 8 News. That means it was a bulk of our local residents that heard the noise and responded accordingly. And I think we just have to keep the messaging out there that you've got to wear the mask from the parking spot onto the beach. And then if you want to take it off, fine. But you can't be passing each other on the beach pass face to face, or we're just going to end up with high COVID numbers. As you know, I'm from Florida. I can't even tell you the number of posts I read from friends and family about how bad it is down there. It's unreal. Where my mother lives, where my brother lives, they went from 20 COVIDs to 40 to 80 to 200 to 500 in an area that's smaller than Saco. So we need to get a handle on the public health. We need to look at the public safety long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Councilor Johnston, then Councilor Copeland. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I've actually kind of forgotten what I was going to say at this point, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I concur with you, Mr. Mayor, that, you know, this conversation, at least on traffic and parking, definitely lies with the purview of the Traffic Safety Committee. And you know, I've heard several comments that say we haven't done anything for 20 years. Well, I kind of take exception to that, because for 6 years I've been on traffic safety, and almost every meeting, including this upcoming meeting, we address traffic issues in Camp Ellis, Kinney Shores. And I'm sure Director Fox, who gets the brunt of the, you know, blowback based on the decisions we make. I mean, I just want to caution people that I think that this is the route to go, but it's not going to have the answer for everybody. We've seen this. I've seen this over 6 years. There's people that are happy. There's people that are unhappy. I don't think we really are going to have, you know, an end-all solution. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed over the last few years when I started trying to pay attention to it was we'd have people come and complain about the traffic or the cars that were parked in many of the side streets in Kinney Shores. And when I started talking to those property owners, many of them elderly and you know, lifelong or long-term residents, you know, they would tell me in conversation that it would appear that the majority of this traffic happens to be coming right from Kinney Shores, in that we've now converted a lot of these properties to Airbnb. It's a high turnover. They have way more cars than their tiny little driveways can hold, so they park on the side streets. So, I mean, that's dealing, you know, that's an issue there, and it's probably a larger issue we still need to address. And I don't need to go down that path tonight, but, you know, addressing how we deal with seasonal rentals or Airbnb and making sure that there are standards, because, you know, I have gone down there and I have counted how many cars are in one residence. And when you have 5 or 6 cars and they're spilling out onto, you know, some of those small streets, now you have local residents that are forced to park out on Route 9 or wherever else. So again, it's a very difficult conversation, and, you know, I do think it will take probably at least the next year to try to figure it out. But I welcome it and encourage, you know, the public to participate in that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston, and I agree with you. The city does need to look at a policy on Airbnbs. I believe it was asked of the previous administration and nothing came of it. So it is something that we need to look at as a community and as a council, and present a policy position or perhaps an ordinance on that. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Gunn brought up a good point about having personnel down there and checking and making sure. And I know that there are runs that the police do through there, but thinking about it, the way to fund that might be, because the parking is filled all the time, the revenues must be up. So if we could check on that, Mr. Kainrath, and see what the revenues have been, and if there is room enough in there, and I'm pretty sure there is, because that money has been diverted to other accounts, as we saw during the budget. But maybe we can get someone on there to go around. And I would suggest a police officer because there could be all these issues. So I think that that's one thing that we should look into. I don't think that it's just our neighbors that are doing it, because I have heard many times that that they all know who each other is, and that they're pretty good at wearing masks. So I don't think that a Facebook post has that kind of power. But if we can ask, maybe the person that's going to be on there enforcing the masks or whatever, or monitoring that situation, if they could, find out if they're residents, and we can, but we need data, not just whatever. And don't forget, we have new guests each week. So that's where the signs will come in. If they're big and bold signs, then the people that come in each week, because it's a turnaround on a Saturday, a whole new crew comes in. And I'm disappointed to hear that someone on the Traffic and Safety Commission thinks that there's no solution, and that it's been on each agenda, and it is on each agenda. But that just reinforces the point that there must be a better solution. So my proposal of having residential parking passes could help a lot of this. Ferry Beach has all the parking and so forth. So I appreciate everyone's attention to this evening, and I'm sure that the Traffic and Safety Commission meetings will be well attended by people who have strong opinions about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Johnston. I have Director Fox as well with a hand
Can I
up.
just, I just
Councilor
want to
Johnston.
clarify.
Sure.
I did not say there's no solution. I said there's probably no end-all be-all solution. There's a big difference. So just to clarify, if I did misspeak, then I apologize. We spent most of last winter, maybe it was winter before, going street by street down there, trying to come out with some kind of comprehensive plan. So, I just encourage again that the people that are, upset about it, they attend. In the past, they've been well-attended meetings, but, if you want to be heard, attend, and hopefully we'll be able to come to, some kind of better solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. I think we all kind of understood the intent of what you were saying, is that any kind of decision that you make is going to make some folks happy and make some other folks unhappy. And that's just the nature of making a decision. With that said, I think we do need to look at this issue, as it's been a crux of the community for a long time. And we do need to come up with something and, take action. And if it needs to be amended after that action, we can do that, but something needs to be done. And then we can always reevaluate afterwards. With that, I would like to invite Director Fox to speak. And Director Fox, you still on?
Yes.
Director
I just
Fox,
wanted
thank
to.
you.
I just wanted to provide just some really quick perspective on what we'll work on and what can be expected. Signage, I will work with obviously the city administrator, Parks and Rec. We'll loop in the police department. I think enforcement of anything at the beach is a challenge. You've got a lot of your departments have staffing limitations and staffing challenges right now. Some York County communities have tried like a beach ambassador program, but we already are trying to find volunteers for monitoring the piping plovers, which is a federal requirement. To ask a volunteer to do much in the way of reminding people about masks is probably asking for some confrontation that would be hard to put on any volunteer. I'm not sure police are going to be able to staff, just to set some reasonable expectations. I'm not sure they're going to be able to staff any sort of beach monitoring of mask wearing. I don't anticipate that. Signs could take up to a week or two to get, unless we can find some more generic ones that aren't Saco specific, that just encourage distancing on the walkways. And I just want to say that the Traffic Safety Committee, each of the last 3 years has gone neighborhood by neighborhood. Kinney Shores 2 or 3 years ago, Camp Ellis. We went down through police, fire, public works with an actual fire truck making turning movements, making sure safety was addressed with all parking signage, and then brought a map of each neighborhood to the committee for full discussion and vote. And that was actually very well received by each of those neighborhoods in a different time frame and when people were focused on just that one issue and not sort of blending them all together. I think the one place left untouched over the last few years would be Seaside Ave itself. And I think when I said that it wasn't on the next agenda, it just wasn't noticed as Seaside Ave parking, but there is actually a Kinney Shores parking issue. And if it weren't such a hot topic area, there's always the 90-day ability for the police department to enact a no parking zone. But this one you can see has a lot of layers to it. So I think it warrants the full discussion Thursday night of the committee before they move forward with anything like that. So hopefully that helps with what staff will do over the next week or two related to these hot button issues.
Thank you, Director Fox. And Pat, please correct me if I'm wrong. I seem to remember you talking to the council a couple of years ago about the possibility of putting in parking spaces down there and correctly lining them. And you said there was a cost associated with that to make sure all the lot lines are correct and all the. It was somewhere in the vicinity of about $35,000, if I remember correctly. Is that still the case of what it would cost the city to go down there and properly identify lot lines, identify city property, and then line those areas with, green chalk to mark out the parking signs, and then adequately, put those parking spots in with signage? Can you kind of think back to that conversation and kind of update this council with that?
I don't think it would cost $35,000, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I think what it does come down to is that was, I believe, for another scenario of widening or putting a gravel parking area in perhaps or something. I have 2 people who paint pretty much every day of the summer between crosswalks, downtown parking stalls, all the parking spots in all the school and public parking lots. So it would really just be, I would just need to increase the staff allocation. Every line you see painted, no matter what it is, has to be painted every year, once or twice a year. I would say just once a year so if we went down and made 100 parking stalls, they all just need to be painted every year. And that's the same staff I have pave roads or put in sewer lines. So it would just be a staff allocation to do that. And we would get to it as we could. Certainly the first year of doing all the layout and whatnot takes a little more time, but just a matter of allocating resources and challenging as the city grows and the people don't.
Thank you, Director Fox. Chief Clements. Chief Clements, are you on with us? Chief, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you, Chief. Chief, Andrew says you might have to change your audio settings given that you're using earphones. Chief, the other option is you could dial in on the actual number 646-558-8656. Councilors, apologize for any kind of technical delays. I think the idea here was to get the chief on and talk about enforcement measures, perhaps what it would cost or what it might cost for if the council wanted to approve beach ambassadors, or if they wanted to look at a more a police approach of hiring part-time law enforcement officers or reserve officers, similar to what Old Orchard Beach has, and having those part-time law enforcement officers work for the summer down the beach to handle any issues, because as Director Fox pointed out, once you start interacting with the public, residents or non-residents, you're going to have some people that are just angry that you've even talked to them. Take it from a former law enforcement officer. So I think the idea here is if the council wants some sort of action, I would like the chief to come forward with some ideas of what that might look like for the next council meeting, and so that the city council can take some action on what they would like if they do want if they do want to hire some folks, but that will take a budget amendment for the city council to amend the budget to hire those folks. Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate my earlier stated stance in relation to what you just said, just to remind my fellow councilors and everyone listening, we have about 6 to 8 weeks of beach weather ahead of us. And if there is going to be a place in this town where a COVID spike may occur, it's going to be on this beach, though. So just as a temporary seasonal solution to have staff down there, I mean, you don't need people there past September and October when it's frankly too cold to have a lot of people down there. So I think this is something we should seriously look at, though. Think of it as maybe it's a hit financially short term, but if we're having to deal with this next summer and COVID hasn't gone away, I mean, it's a short-term investment, though, but I think it's beneficial to the community as a whole. I mean, we have health in this community and a lot of older folks in this community, so this could be a serious issue of life and death, and not something we should necessarily just dismiss as not having the resources to deal with it, though. This is one of those situations where government's in business for, and that's to protect the health and safety of everybody. And if we can spend the money wisely and prudently and get some positive effects until it gets cold, then I think we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. Chief Clements, if you're still on and listening, included in that, in some of those, I think he's still an attendee.
Yeah, he's completely off.
City Administrator Kainrath, perhaps Chief Clements can also include there a timeline that it would take to hire a seasonal law enforcement officer. I know it, but I would like it to come from the chief of police rather than from me. And then maybe some solutions in the meantime that he can do with some of his current staff, perhaps the reassignment of the school resource officers for a couple of months to the beach area as community programs officers, something along those lines to maybe deal with this during that short time frame. But again, if just some options for the council to consider. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is a spectacular idea. I like that. The community resource officer, certainly this community needs that resource down here. And the only point that I was going to make was, don't forget to include Camp Ellis itself, because you go down there and there's like, 50 people swarming around Hewitt's without masks on, and up and down the side streets, over into that, on that corner where people go to the beach. There's just people all over. So that needs to be included as part of this whole monitoring system. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do think that the entire beach should be under consideration, not just one area. I will say that I did drive by around lunchtime down the beach today, and there was not proper social distancing going on at Camp Ellis. So I don't know if all those folks were together. So I really can't say if it was all or three large families all sitting together. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, I do think we do need to do some signage. We need to do some better signage at all of our beaches. And then we need to look at how to enforce some of that. Not that we want to become the mask police or anything like that, but we need to look at ways to educate folks and also just provide notice to folks of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. With that, Councilor Archer.
Yeah, it's just more of a quick question with what Councilor Gunn had mentioned. Is what is the earliest we get a budget amendment forward? We would have to have 3 meetings, correct? So that would put us into late August. So I think when the mayor mentioned the redistribution of current officers possibly is a better option than funding, just because we wouldn't have it in time. We could operate in the sense of pre-funding it. I guess it's not a great way to say it, but just fund it and then just with the hopes council passes it. But again, it's a weird way to fund that way, and I wouldn't recommend it. But I guess I just wanted to bring that forward because I think we're looking at a late August before we could actually do it, a budget amendment passage.
Theoretically, I mean, we could call some special meetings and push through a budget amendment if that was the council's desire. But I think obviously school resource officers can't be used too much because they have to go back to school if that's the will of the school board, which we should find out some more information on that Wednesday night on what that might look like. So we will only, if that was a possibility, and I'm not saying it is because I don't speak for the police chief, but if that was a possibility, you can only the window to utilize that staff is only a short window, but it might get us through a little bit. I'm going to bring in the chief now. I think he's back. Chief Clements, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me now?
Chief, we can hear you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yes, sir.
Chief, did you hear some of the questions that we were talking about?
I heard a portion of them when I was trying to get back on a different computer.
Okay.
Is there some questions about reserve officers?
Yeah. So, Chief, I think there's a couple of different things. Could it be possible? And I'm, again, I don't know. I don't want to reorganize the department, but would it be possible to use some of the school resource officers as a way to have them on the beach enforcing or educating folks on social distancing, masks, and also some of the other issues we have down there with piping plovers and what have you, as a way to, as a deterrent, really, for folks to, for folks that aren't listening.
Well, a couple things I guess I could talk about, Mayor, is number one, those school resource officers were redistributed to be community resource officers. So they're involved with doing the meal program, checking on elderly, that type of thing. So that's where those folks were, what they were tasked with doing this summer is doing that particular thing. As far as shifting them, right now I'm down about 4 officers. So the challenge is staffing. Having people down there and getting people to do that. As you know, and the rest of the council knows, this has kind of picked up quite a bit here just the last week. But all summer, we have been getting complaints from all over the community about speeding, traffic, that type of thing. So we really have tried to focus on that. With the amount of resources that I have, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do everything for everyone when we're down 4 police officers.
Thank you, Chief, for that. And with that, we're not looking to overtax your already taxed staff. We do want to thank you and your staff for everything you're doing, especially during this pandemic. With that, what would be the time frame to adequately, given a budget amendment from council, adequately notice and hire reserve police officers should the council decide to put reserve police officers on the beach to be the enforcement mechanism for some of these things, much like Old Orchard does?
Well, I would tell you that this summer that we would not be able to make that happen. By the time we post the position, do interviews, we have to do a background check to make sure we're getting the right people, schedule polygraphs, that type of thing. If we were going to look at doing that for the summer, I would start looking at that somewhere around January is when I would want to start doing that. That would be for the summer. For right now, I couldn't make that happen in 6 weeks, not with the vetting process we have to go through.
Thank you, Chief. That I kind of figured that, but I wanted you to update the council on that, as I've been through that process a couple of different times. So,
yes, sir. It's we want to make sure we pick the right people to do the job, and so there is a process we have to go through per the academy regulations, and just to make sure we're doing the right thing, and that takes some time.
Absolutely. So, and our animal control officer, is that a part-time position?
Yes, sir. That is a part-time position.
So the council could authorize in a budget amendment that position to be a full-time or temporary full-time position to handle some of the dog complaints on the beach that are down there and maybe deal with some of the other community programs. Is that a possibility?
Well, my animal control officer actually works part-time for us and part-time for another community. It just wasn't in the budget this year to hire that particular person for full-time. So, if we asked them to do that part-time, then we're asking them to leave their job in another community and hope that that community would hire them back when we're not asking them to do that full-time thing.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from councilors for Chief Clements? Councilor Copeland.
I don't have any real questions for you, Chief. I just wanted to give you and your department a shout out for really being there for everybody. I know we had some community members over on King Street have some issues, and you and Deputy Chief Huntress came out, and that was really well received and appreciated. Oh, hi, there you are. And all the things that you're doing, we absolutely appreciate, and we that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Copeland. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Thank you, Chief. Chief, do you have any suggestions on some enforcement measures outside of increased signage to deal with some of these ongoing complaints that we've had, not only with parking, but with some of the community complaints about masks and social distancing and large crowds. And
Well, I can tell you that I do see these crowds in the neighboring beaches. There are a lot of folks out there. Doesn't matter which beach you walk on, Old Orchard, Scarborough. There are a lot of folks out there. I know people can't travel and go to the places they'd like to, so they're trying to find some place to get to during the heat. I think the best thing to do, Mayor, would be to do what you talked about. I think Thursday night, I've already been talking with the Deputy Chief and Director Fox on some things that we can look at down there from a parking standpoint. I think that would help out some, but I do think that based on the number of things we deal with down there every year, I do think that a good, solid, comprehensive plan going into next year would be the best thing to do. Just really come up with something that looks at everything, has community involvement, obviously has the council involved, and then really be prepared for next summer so that we're ready for the crowds and the parking issues that come with it.
thank you, Chief. Chief, do you, and I'm sure this would be an issue, I'm sure this would be an issue for the unions, and I know a little something about that. And I don't know that council would approve it, but do you think it would be wise or maybe even a possibility to utilize, as we know we're all struggling during the pandemic in the community, some more than others. Do you think it may be wise to utilize the services of an outside agency such as a security company to be down there and be some of that, provide some of that community service aspect to the residents and beachgoers alike?
I certainly think that that's something, if you would like to take a look at, that we could, look at. I don't know how long it would take to get a contract. With such a short window left in the summer, I'm not sure that we could actually get something in place by the time summer kind of comes to an end. I don't know if that would cause any issues with my folks internally, because that would be something they would be looking at from an overtime perspective, I think. The other challenge, though, is that when you have, whether it's beach ambassadors or security officers that are talking to people, when you get somebody who is uncooperative and does not want to wear a mask, those things do generate additional calls for service, which means that we have to normally just put more police officers down there anyway.
Thank you for that, Chief. Any further questions or comments from City Council? Seeing none. Chief, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, sir.
So Council, as you can see, the discussion of the beach safety and protocols, there's some significant challenges there, and there's no miracle answer. What we do have is a commitment from the councilors on the Traffic Safety Committee and the Traffic Safety Committee members is that there will be a look at the Seaside Avenue parking and some of the other parking measures and perhaps a comprehensive parking plan for Camp Ellis to Kinney Shores and the Old Orchard Beach line, perhaps by next year. As far as enforcement of some of the other provisions, I think City Administrator Canrath pointed out that they will make sure to get the signage going and get the signage up at the different areas to remind folks that of the parameters put out by the Maine CDC and Governor Mills, as well as picking up after yourselves and picking up after your animals, and then also to leave the wildlife alone. So I think we are doing that. And as far as in any additional enforcement, as you heard from Chief Clements, that's going to be extremely difficult to do in the next 6 weeks. So, councilors, if there's,
Mr. Mayor.
City Administrator Cannon.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one piece. I just wanted to remind that half of this agenda item was also to discuss the piping plovers. We had a horrible incident earlier this month with a piping plover chick, and we don't want to forget that in all of this either. They are protected species. We should be reminding people to leave them alone, to leave the nesting areas alone. So we talked about signage earlier. I think including more signage on that also might be relevant. And I just didn't want that to get lost in this discussion either, because we did have a bad event earlier this month. It's bad publicity for the city. It's bad publicity for our community. And of course, we're hurting an endangered species. So I just wanted to make sure they weren't forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. So, councilors, if you have any ideas or any further ideas on some of these issues, now is the time to bring them forward. So, Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Canrath. Good point. And a lot of my constituents, and well, Jody is a monitor as well, but the issue down there is that people don't necessarily know. I think that bad situation that happened, I don't know that, if they find the person, I would love to wag my finger at him, but just to stop it, the real thing I think is information. So I think signs, and not just, stay away, piping plovers, but maybe more of a sign about, this is a federally, protected animal, and it's a $25,000 fine, and, give them more information that this is, the reason that we're doing it. It's not just, tree huggers. This is the real deal, and that there are real consequences. So I think maybe not just some ordinary signs, but some very specific signs.
I agree. I'd like to do some educational signs so people understand why, not just other. Yes, agree.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree with education on the plovers and some of the endangered species down there, but I do disagree that it's people who don't know or aren't paying attention. I do feel that unfortunately, this particular incident, as well as the one that happened in Old Orchard, and possibly years past, are people who don't care and are trying to defy society as it is right now. That unfortunately is the way that it is going. But I do believe that our locals, the education is important, and people do want to know more about it. But these incidences are very specific and targeted. Outside of dogs, those incidences, yes, that falls into people with the dog leashes, and the dog will run. But if it is done by human act, it is people who don't care. And it was a very, very tragic incident. We were all affected. And again, I want to thank the community. Everybody was great with it. People really wanted to help, and they reached out. And so hopefully going forward, some education might work. And it's just working in coordination with the Audubon and Maine Inland Fisheries.
Thank you, Councilor McPhail. Just want to let everyone know that Councilor Johnston had to excuse himself, and he did post that in the chat. He is off to work. So we will move on, but just so everyone is aware. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing no further discussion on this item, we are moving on to administrative updates. City Administrator Canrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick items. Update on City Hall operations. As you know, the building is back open. Our lines are dwindling rapidly. We're back down to a much more manageable level. So I think we've moved through the worst of it pretty gracefully. Again, thank you to all the staff for their efforts in getting us through this, especially the finance department on the first floor, who have been on the front lines of this. So thank you to everyone. Our lines are down substantially. I think it was very smart, again, to do the month of appointments and we seem to be well past the worst of it. So thank you again to everyone. Also, thank you to City Clerk Michelle Hughes, the City Clerk staff, and all poll workers for making it through our first election in the COVID-19 era. We managed to get through the whole thing without any major issues. There was heavy usage of absentee ballots, which was great, and also heavy usage of our brand new absentee ballot drop box on the side of the building. So thank you to all citizens for their participation there. And again, thank you to the clerk's office staff for taking this on and for making it a success. The Amtrak Downeaster train is now operating 4 trains per day starting this week between Brunswick and Boston. Our transportation center is still currently closed, but we expect to reopen it probably in early August. We are in communication with other stations, and we'll be coordinating with them on reopening plans. Our annual report is currently being compiled. I want to thank all of our city staff, department heads who have submitted their pieces for this report. I know it's always an undertaking. And I also want to thank Hannah, who's our summer intern here, for her assistance in helping us compile this report, and we'll have it to present to council at a meeting later this summer. So that's all I have, short and sweet. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Keenrath. Any questions for Brian? Council Archer. Council Archer, you're muted.
I have a question that can I follow up with my council discussion item that is directly related to it?
It's going to depend on if there's other councilors who have any questions for City Administrator Kim.
No. Okay. Well, the question is this, I was aware that the 30 days is expired for 60 Bayview Road. Was that sign taken down?
So this is an ongoing situation. I don't know if you want to discuss it here, but the 30 days has elapsed. Code enforcement was going out today to confirm whether it was outside the right of way or in the right of way. That will make a difference in what we could do with it. The initial opinion of what it was outside the right of way, but we'll have more clarification tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And
if it is outside the right of way, there is an appeal process that will then go forward from there.
Okay. Now this part is council discussion, and I want to make sure they were clearly separated. When I look at developers in our neighborhood, I take into consideration of are you being a good steward to the community? So again, I'm just going to make this clear that if this ever came to a contract zone, I'm not interested in this. So again, I just wanted clear separation between council discussion and the question between our city administrator. So again, I'm not interested in this project if it ever became a contract zone. The second item, yes. The second item is a lot less, is on the signs. If we're going to be building signs for the beach, can we also do that for the dogs at the beach and in our public areas? So I just figured I'd piggyback on that, since that's being discussed about the signs, that we just also use the same time to address the dog issues that we have. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Archer. City Administrator Keenrath, Council Archer asked at the last city council meeting, he referenced an animal incident that took place on a public school and asked for signage about leashing your animals on city-owned property. And can we get an update at your next city administrator update where that is, if we've properly signed all public spaces or public schools with signage for making sure your dog is leashed?
Sure. And while we're talking about signage, I think, as we're talking about putting new signs up, we should sort of put together an all-encompassing list, especially for the beaches. It seems like there's several issues here, and dogs is one of them. So yes.
Thank you. Councilor Copeland, then Councilor Minthorn. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Keenrath, I would suggest that no smoking on public property. I've received a lot of complaints about smoking down on the beach. And if it's a city beach, then we can say there's no smoking on city property. The other issue is the 60 Bayview. Oh my word. We must resolve this. This is crazy. So one of the constituents today, as you well know, suggested putting up a city sign saying this is just debunk the fact that he is allowed to advertise 6 housing units in that area where they can only do 2. And he's got people stopping by because as soon as we turn on our head, he puts that sign back in, even though he has a blatant disregard for the authority of the city. And I actually, in the email I sent you today, proposed not issuing any building permits to those folks. They are abusing our situation. They owe over $37,000 in taxes. It's ridiculous. They're tormenting the neighborhood down here.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Minthorn.
Yeah, I'm not dropping myself on that grenade for anything. On to the next one. I think, there's been a lot of discussion on council of all the different things in our community that we could devote some attention to. We've all been well aware of this. We've said, okay, well, let's get through budget. We've done that. The schools got their budget passed through the voters, so that's done. So I think it's time, and I know there's some upcoming agenda items addressing different things, but I think as counselors, we need to be thinking, as you can see the view behind me is it, aerial view, 10,000 feet or whatever of the interchange. And we all want to leave Saco in a much better way than we found it as counselors. And I think as we move forward through the second half of the year, it behooves all of us to get together, get on the same sheet of paper and decide what we can do to make Saco a better place in little bites and in big bites. And the big bites take a little bit longer, but they have lasting effects. And I know that the developer issue, this isn't the first developer issue we've had. And if anyone was reading the Portland Press Herald today, one of our old friends of Saco Island fame had his name plastered all over one of the sections there. I'm not going to say his name, nor am I going to talk too much about the article, other than to say that there were a couple of us, if you went back to that issue long ago, that had a differing opinion of some of the rest of the counselors on that. And I wish we would have been in the majority instead of the minority, because we wouldn't have the issues we have today with that parcel of property. And I think we need to look at our developer language in our ordinances, and maybe we need to tighten things up a bit and make it a little harder to develop things in Saco and not have your money where your mouth is, because it seems time and time again, we have developers that are all talk, or they're posting, as this gentleman who's done at 60 Bayview, a project that can't happen. And again, we end up looking like the bad folks, and we end up looking like the police, if you will, from the standpoint of having to enforce stuff. And then we only find out that we really don't have the enforcement tools we need to regulate some of these people and bring them into line. So I would hope we'll all take a couple steps back, look at the 10,000 foot view, and let's try and find some ways to make Saco a better place in the long term. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Thank you, City Administrator Canrath, for your administrative update. And
I just
since
say
we
one more thing quickly.
City Administrator Canrath.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing quickly. I think just to maybe, put a cap on this, I think we've heard a lot tonight. We do have some challenges. Of course we do. Every community does. But I think we should also not lose perspective of all the things that are right with our community, that have gone really well in our community, especially through this pandemic. I think we should count our blessings in many ways. We've weathered this very well compared to many places in the state and around the country, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. And these challenges that we deal with, we talk about beach parking, other things. I'll just say, just some perspective. This is my 3rd community that's a beachfront community, and I can say in every one of these communities, every summer, there are challenges with beach parking, beach issues. So these are not unique to Saco. We have challenges. We will meet them. We will get through them, but they are not unique to us. And I just don't want us to lose sight of all the good things that happen in our community on a daily basis, that we do as a city, that we do as a council. We really do some good work here. So we have some challenges. We'll get through them. There are challenges we will meet. And these issues are not unique to us. So there are many good things in this community, and we will make Saco great and even greater. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. With that, we moved from the administrative update into council discussion and comment. Is there any further council discussion and comment than what's already been said? The only thing I have is I want to let the council know that the new school board members, Jeff and Christina, will be sworn in on Wednesday at 3 p.m. in City Hall in the auditorium. Councilor Archer, you expressed interest in being there, so I wanted to make sure that you're aware. If there's anyone else who expressed interest in being there, please notify Brian, because we cannot, the City Hall conference, or excuse me, the City Hall auditorium, which is why we're not really having meetings there, is only set for about 15 people with social distancing. So if anyone wants to partake, please feel free to do so, but just notify city staff so they can plan appropriately. Thank you. Councilor Minthorn, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just want to give a big shout out to Director Roth and all he has done to get the city prepared in daily, the fire drills he and the facilities crews put out. It's been a yeoman's effort. And if any of you follow he or his mother on Facebook, he also built a home for his mother in the middle of all this. Like, he has spare time. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And he and a couple of friends built her a house. So congratulations to his mom for the new digs that are coming along very nicely. And thank the facilities group for all their hard work.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Any further council discussion and comment? Okay, seeing no hands raised and nobody seeking recognition, moving on. There's no executive session tonight, so we will bypass agenda item 13 and 14. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Minthorn, second by Councilor Copeland. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Councilor Archer.
Aye.
And Councilor Purdy.
Yes.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Copeland.
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn.
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 6-0. Again, Council, thank you very much for everything tonight. Thank you for passing those all important items of the adoption of the Intercultural Competency and Awareness Resolution and an Intercultural Competency and Awareness Committee formation. Again, thank you to all city staff that worked on that and city administration for allowing them to do so. And again, thank you to all the city staff that are working hard through this pandemic and supporting us and supporting our community. And thank you to the community members who continue to bring forward issues that need to be addressed. And as City Administrator Canrath said, we will address these issues. It may not happen overnight, but we will meet the challenges over the next years and address a multitude of these issues. So thank you very much. Be well and stay safe.